Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, third in our grant system training. Today, we will be discussing submitting the project status report for CDBG programs. So again, I'm glad everyone can make the time to be part of our session today, where we'll be focusing on how to submit your project status reports through Amplifund. As we get started, a reminder, the session will be recorded or is being recorded and will be available as well. Once the session is over, it'll be available on the DED support site. Today, what we're going to do is we're just going to talk a little bit about today's session and then some of the deadlines that are associated with submitting your project status report. I'm going to review some of those resources that are available to you to help guide you through managing your award in Amplifund and submitting your project status reports in Amplifund as well. We're going to talk a little bit about the specific items that we'll be reviewing in Amplifund today in preparation for managing and submitting your project status reports. And then we're going to go over a list of all of the national objectives, all the different forms, the beneficiary data that we'll be looking at today and that we'll be looking at filling out. We will have time at the end for questions. There is a significant number of DED program staff on the line today. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask those at any time by utilizing the Q&A feature that's on your WebEx. The Q&A is located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx window. If you navigate to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see there's 3 dots. Go ahead and click on the 3 dots, select Q&A, and submit your question that way. Again, as I mentioned, there's plenty of DED program staff on the line to help answer your question. Please feel free to submit those questions as we're going through the session today. And then we'll also have time at the end for a Q&A session as well for any other questions that you may think of towards the end of today's webinar. In terms of what we're covering today and some important deadlines that are specific to the content we're looking at, today's session is the last in our series of training sessions for getting into Amplifund with your open awards. And today we are specifically focusing on submitting the project status report for your CDBG program. And then one thing that we would like to emphasize here as well, deadline for submission of your project status report, August 30th, 2021. So as we're going through today and as we're reviewing how to fill out your forms and how to fill out the status report in Amplifund, just keep in mind that you'll be able to complete these forms, submit them to DED, and that the deadline for submission of these forms is August 30th. All right, in terms of some of the help that will be provided to you and that you can utilize as a resource, the DED Amplifund help page is a great resource that has a lot of specific materials. So on this URL here, opportunity.nebraska.gov/Amplifund. If you may have already navigated there for other items managing your award, but it is a one-stop shop for all the material and the documentation that you'll need, user guides to help guide you through the process of managing your DED award within Amplifund. One thing that I will mention too is that regarding today's material, we will have specific guides and instructions up on the web on that help page as well. Those will be up by Friday. So if you're looking for the specific instructions for what we're going through today, those will be posted along with the recording of today's webinar this coming Friday. Also, you have access to Amplifund support. I see a lot of us have already taken advantage of this option as our awards are as we're starting to get into Amplifund and utilize the system to manage our awards. You can reach out to the Amplifund support team by submitting a support ticket either within the product, which I'll show you, or by emailing your question to support@amplifund.zendesk.com. So if you have any questions, feel free to submit those as a support ticket by emailing support@amplifund.zendesk.com. Our support team will respond to your tickets. Our support hours are Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time. If you submit a ticket after hours, it'll be picked up and worked at the start of the next business day. So if you have any technical questions, Amplifund specific questions, you can always feel free to submit a support ticket. One thing that I also wanted to cover here in terms of getting into the system and managing your award. So activation emails were sent out on July 30th and on August 3rd. If you've not yet received your activation email, a couple of steps that you can take. One is you can check your spam or your junk folder. And what you're looking for when you go into one of those folders is the activation email comes from no-reply@gotomygrants.com. So look for that email address. If you haven't already received an email, look for that one. That is the address that it comes from. There is a specific guide that is available to you that I know was sent out and is also available on the DED support site, getting started with your migrated awards. So for all of us that have new awards in Amplifund, it's a good guide to just kind of help get us started. If you have not yet, if you've received an email but can't access Amplifund, if you haven't received an email, or just generally if you're having trouble accessing Amplifund, go ahead and send an email to ded.research@nebraska.gov, indicating what you need help with and any other details that may be relevant to your request. So few different avenues you can take there in terms of getting help. But again, if you just need help accessing your Amplifund account, go ahead and email ded.research@nebraska.gov. And as always, if you have any program questions, you can always reach out to your DED program manager, whether it be a program specific question. Your program managers are always available to help. Also, they've been well trained in utilizing Amplifund. So chances are if you have a program question and it's also an Amplifund question, then they'll be able to help you out with that as well. Please feel free to utilize all of these support and help resources that are available to you. Again, throughout today's session, when you have questions or if you have questions, utilize the Q&A feature on your WebEx. Bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx window, click on the three dots and access the Q&A from there. All right, let's talk a little bit about navigating in the system and what we're going to be looking at when we get into our demonstration today. So we're going to talk about how to access your award. So we've covered this in depth in previous webinars. There's material on the DED support site that walks through this in depth, but pretty much how to navigate through Amplifund, how to get to your award is where we'll get started. Then we want to take a look at accessing and how you can access your available forms. So when we're looking at accessing forms, we're talking about two different forms that you'll have access to. One is two different types of forms, I'll say, more than two forms though. Completing the external user request form is one, and then also how to fill out any of your project status report forms. So that is the main area of emphasis that will be on today's webinar. We'll be focusing on how to submit that request for external users, but mostly we will be focusing on completing your project status report, accessing the associated forms, filling them out, and making sure that they get submitted to your DED program. Now, speaking of the project status reports, so these forms are all available to you on your award and your Amplifund account. Um, they should mostly be there. If they're not there, they'll be loaded by the end of the day today. So if you go into your award and you see that your award doesn't have the forms, then it'll be there by the end of the day today. These are all the different forms that you have to fill out that you'll need access to. The national objective forms. So these are the forms that we'll be going through today, how to fill them out, and also providing some guidance and instructions on what type of information needs to be included in there. So we'll have different national objective forms that we need to complete, LMI on an area basis, unlimited clientele basis, housing, jobs, slum and blight on an area basis, urgent need. In addition, we'll be looking at specific indicator and beneficiary data forms. So for planning, for public facility, for public infrastructure activities, businesses assisted, and public services. And then the last forms that we'll be looking at today are the maybe weeby section in section 3 reporting, as well as the new hires form. So this is a list of forms that you'll see when you're going in to access your project status report in your award and Amplifund. And these are the forms that we'll be looking at today, how to complete, and some instructions as well behind the completion of these different forms. So I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to switch over. The rest of this presentation will mostly be getting into Amplifund, and then we'll be looking at how you can access your awards and your forms, as well as how you can complete the different forms. So we're going to go in and I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to take a look at Amplifund, how we see these forms and these awards in Amplifund. As I mentioned, there is to help us out, there's a number of DED program staff on the line today as well. And going through these forms, we'll be walking through how to access them and how to actually fill them out. But we'll also have assistance from Rebecca and the rest of the DED team in terms of, what needs to go into these forms and specifically how to fill out, certain areas. So as we're getting started here, the first thing that I wanted to walk through today is just kind of some basic navigation. So getting into Amplifund, you'll first log in, you'll see on your screen here the calendar. On your left navigation menu, this is where you're going to see the different areas that allow you to access um, different parts of your Amplifund account. Really, the main one we're going to be looking at today is your grant management section, where you'll be able to see all your different awards. You also have your user drop-down menu here in the top right-hand corner. So the user drop-down menu will allow you to access user-specific items like changing your password, viewing your account information, and then also accessing help and support. Your icon toolbar. This is an area of the system that we're going to be utilizing today. It's this tab here in the top right-hand corner of your screen. The icon toolbar features a lot of different action-oriented icons that allow you to take specific actions on a page. So some of the common ones we're going to be looking at today are, a plus sign, which allows us to add a form or add information, pencil icon, which allows us to edit detail as well. And if you ever don't know what one of these icons does, you can always hover your mouse over it and it'll tell you exactly what the icon does. So at this point, I'm ready to go in and I want to look at my award. So I'm going to navigate on the left navigation menu here to grant management and click on grants. And as I click on grants, I'm going to get a list of all of my available grants here. So I'm going to click on the one that I want to fill out my PSR for. So I click on the name of the grant to get in and actually access the grant itself. Once I'm here in this grant section, I will mention that um, there's a lot of information on this grant details page. Um, we've covered a lot of this in depth in previous sessions, and there's a lot of great guidance on, what all these fields mean and, how to leverage this information to help manage your award. So please feel to reference the DED support site for any of that information. Um, but really, we're the area of the system that we're going to be focused on today in terms of filling out our external user consent form and then our PSR forms is going to be here at the top in this custom tab. If I click on the drop down, then this is going to provide me with all of the available forms that I have to fill out for my project status report. So there's, as I mentioned before, there's two form types that we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on the external user consent form, and we're going to focus on completing and filling out all of our project status report forms. Now, today we're going over every single form, and every form may not be specific to your project. So as we begin to go through and as we begin to learn how to fill out the forms, it's always important that you select, only the beneficiary data that's pertinent to you or the national objectives that are pertinent to your award. You'll see everything here, but you only have to fill out the ones that are specific to your program. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and the specifics once we really dive in and start getting into these forms. Just the first form that I wanted to look at first, though, before we start getting into all of the project status report forms, first one I wanted to look at here is the external user consent form. So I know one of the parts, one of the processes that we've been going through, and that you have in terms of managing your award is, utilizing those certified administrators. A lot of times, the certified administrators are not from within your organization or your local unit of government. So we need to establish a request for an external user to be added in to your organization's Amplifund account. Now, as part of the process and kind of ramping up for these awards to be in Amplifund, there was a survey that DED sent out in July, asking if you already knew ahead of time, which external users need to be added into your account to help manage your awards. So if you completed that process, those external users will be added and will have the ability to access their awards beginning on August 9th at the latest. And those users will be receiving an invitation from Amplifund. If that survey was not completed, then this is where you'll start to utilize this external user consent form. So if that wasn't completed, then we'll just have to go in and we'll have to fill out this form right here. And I'm going to get us started with how to fill out the form by going into our top right-hand corner, our icon toolbar here, to click on the plus sign. And this is going to allow us to begin to fill out the form. When I click on the plus sign, it generates this form for me. So here on the form, once I'm filling this out, I have to fill this out with the specific details of the award that I'm managing, that I want this user or the certified administrator to be added to, as well as their organization, and just kind of giving some basic details of, my organization, as well as the organization from the external user I'm trying to add. So here we have a number of required fields. We put in the contract number, my organization name, and our award name. In this second section here, the user to be added, this is where we specify the organization and the individual of the person that we are requesting get added in to manage our award. So here we're going to put their organization name in, their first name, last name, and email address. All important fields here, they're all required. This is going to be the same when we get in and look at submitting any form within the system. Anytime where you see an asterisk here, that means that the field is a required field to populate. Also, some of the fields here, you'll see they have these little eye icons next to them. That means there's some additional instructions or information that's available to look at when we're going through and filling out these fields. So once you're done, go ahead and apply your electronic signature by typing your first and last name, checking the box to indicate that you agree, put in the date, and indicate here that this is ready for submission. And go ahead and click on the create button to create your external user consent form. So again, if you've already done this when the survey came out back in July, then the user will be added by August 9th. If you did not do it at that point, then this will be the process that we want to start to initiate the new request for these users to be added into the system. So now that we've looked at how to add the external user consent form, I want to go ahead and let's focus now the rest of the time on filling out the project status report forms as well. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that right now. And in order to get started, again, one of the things that I want to do is I want to navigate to our, we're going to navigate to our tab, which has all of our different forms. And what we're going to do today first is we're going to take a look at how to access these forms, how to create, and then how to save and keep working on them, but then also how to submit. So the first form that we're going to look at today is one of our national objective forms. It is the project status LMI on an area basis or LMA form. So in order to access the form that I need to complete, I'm going to click on the name of that form, and it's going to bring me to a page that will show me any forms that I've already started or that I've already completed. So I can see right here I have one that I've already completed here or that I've already started working on. We'll use this today as the example, but for the majority of us, we're starting kind of fresh. So when you access this form, you'll be going to the top right-hand corner. When you're ready to fill out your LMA section of the project status report, you'll be clicking on the plus sign here in order to create the form. Now, since I already have one created that I want to use to walk through today, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the pencil icon here in order to edit the form. So we can take a look at the form itself. So again, when you're creating a brand new form, you click on the plus sign. If you want to edit an existing form, you click on the pencil icon to edit it. So one thing that's nice about every form here is you're going to see a lot of common items. Number one is you'll always have a link here to the DED help page that we referenced in the slides. So if you're in one of these forms and you need quick access to the instructions or to the guidance, you'll always have this link over here to reference and to fall back on. When I was mentioning that you'll have some common items across all forms, here, the status report section will be the same, is one of the areas that will be the same across your forms, where on every one of these forms, whether it's your national objective or whether it's your whether it's one of the beneficiary forms, you'll have the section where you can enter in the report number. So you'll be able to enter this in here, the year of the report, You'll be able to check the box for period of time. And then of course, you'll also, be able to indicate when it is the final report, the end date here. As I was mentioning before, any field that is a required field is going to have an asterisk. So you'll have to, at a minimum, populate the required fields. And then also, if you're ever not sure of what any of these does, or what any fields are asking for, there are a number of tooltips located next to them. So here, this is a good one where it asks you for the report year. This is telling you to put in the 4-digit year here. And then same thing with the final report end date. Don't enter a date here unless this is your final report. So always rely on the tooltips and also the little asterisks here to kind of be your guide in terms of what's required and what's required in terms of completing a form, but also what's required in terms of the content within any of these fields.
Great.
So as
Thank you, Dan.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll take over for you.
Yes.
National objective, activity eligibility, fundability. So we're first going through all of our national objective forms. So the first one we're covering is LMA, but you'll notice this is very similar, the intro half on all of the national objective forms. So we'll spend extra time on the first one and then kind of quickly go over on the following forms for the national objective. So first up here is we want you to list out your activity codes in the order of the most money you receive. So definitely recommend taking a look at your contract agreement, and then for this project example, street improvements had the most money, so they're listed as activity code number 1, and then construction management had the second most amount of money. We only had 2 activities here. You'll notice that we do not identify general administration in the drop-down codes. That is intentional. So you do not need to select that because general administration does not have a national objective associated with it. So please be aware of that. Every time you are recording throughout the life of the grant, you are indicating to us that your activity is still meeting the national objective of serving, for this example, low moderate income on an area basis. So you'll need to select the radial button, yes, for each one of those. And then if you want to check under construction management, thank you, for each one of these. So, and then progress of activities. So the first section is you are providing us the progress of activities that occurred during that 6-month period of January 1st to June 30th, 2021. So I provided a brief example here of what is going on. This project's pretty well into the system. It was just one of our migrated projects that we moved over to Amplifund. And this street improvement project is complete. People are able to drive on that road, and they are currently compiling information to prepare for the submission of final financial, final project status reports, and final wage reports. And they'll submit, in the planned activities, they're planning on submitting all of that documentation in the next reporting period. So you'll see in the planned activities, we have indication of what they're planning on doing in the next 6 months. For my example on this, we do have the project, you're able to drive on the streets. So they are reporting their beneficiaries for this activity. So you'll see in low moderate income area benefit total persons number, that 1,345. And then 770 of those individuals are low moderate income. And that should match up with your contractual agreement that you found those numbers during your application period. As always, you will be reporting on race and ethnicity for the total population. And I gave an example of this breakdown. If you have questions on where to find this information, feel free to reach out to your program representative. There's a couple different avenues to qualify for low moderate income on an area basis. So we'll give you one-on-one technical assistance for that. So you'll see that the total population adds up to 1345 at the bottom, which matches with our total reported number in the above section. Thank you. Then when we move down to race and ethnicity, one thing I want to highlight here is we are entering the numbers of the total. This is the number of individuals who identify as Hispanic. So this number does not need to be 1345. It's a sub number of that 1345. So you see that 519 of the individuals identified as white Hispanic here. And then we have that number there. You'll also notice I did not leave anything blank on here. There are zeros in each field. That is purposeful, and we are requesting everyone to do that. If you leave a blank, we're not sure if you intentionally are meaning zero or you forgot to leave it, enter a number in there. So if we do see anything that's left blank, we will be requesting you to put in zero. So please make note of that, to enter zero, so we don't have to make an assessment of what you were trying to do. So thank you on that. And if you keep scrolling down, income levels here, you'll notice that our total reported income equals 1345, and then we have that 770 listed out for 50 to 80% AMI. That correlates with our initial numbers we presented earlier in this reporting form. Depending on how you are qualifying for low moderate income on an area basis, you may have 0 to 30 and then also 30 to 50 filled out, especially if you did a census income survey. But if you are qualifying off of an ACS data or a random sample survey, you normally fill out the 50 to 80% and the number of incomes above 80% there. So you'll notice that all the total numbers equal 1345, lining up. So please make sure you're consistent within your report. Thank you. And then at the bottom of each of our reports, we do have a certification section. The box does need to be checked, saying that everything, to the best of your knowledge, is correct and true, and the certified administrator, or if the city official is filling out this form, they need to type in their name, indicating that it has been approved by them. And then for form completion, the box needs to be checked yes, and a date needs to be entered for the department to know for sure that you are done working on this form. If this is left blank or is selected no on there, we do not consider it submitted to us.
And I'll also mention here too, if you begin to work on your report and you're not totally done, then like Rebecca said, go ahead, check that box as no. That way the Department of Economic Development knows that it's not a completed form. So you don't have to fill this all out at once in order to get it completed. You can go through, you can fill out those, whatever fields you're prepared to fill out at the time, select no, and then come back to it and click save and come back to it later. So we've taken a look at all of that first national objective form there for us. So at this time, we're going to move on, and we are going to focus on the next national objective form, which is the LMC form. So in terms of accessing the LMC form, the navigation is the same with what we've seen. We're going to see this consistently throughout the webinar today, where to access the LMC form, we go into the Custom tab here at the top. And here in our forms, we look for that LMI on a limited clientele basis, the LMC form here. So in order to access this form, to complete it like we just did for the LMA, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the name of the form. Same, same concept here in terms of accessing the form. If I'm, creating this from scratch, a brand new form, then we're going to go in the icon toolbar here in the top right-hand corner and click on the plus sign. Since we already have a form that Rebecca is going to walk us through that shows an example of what type of information belongs here, we're just going to click on the pencil icon here to edit this form. And the same holds true for, if you've already created a form, you selected no that you're not done with it, and you come back to it later. In order to access it again in an editable state, you can click on that pencil icon, which will allow you to edit the form. So a couple of the consistencies that we're seeing here with this one is, again, you'll always have access to the instructions from the DED support site. And then our status report section here. Again, we're indicating the report number at the top, the report year, which is, again, the 4-digit year format, and then the period of time for the project status report, and then this field only if it's a final report.
Cool. So for this example, I use Child Care Center, and that this is one of our migrated projects for the example. And so you will notice that we start off with report number 5 right away. There aren't your previous reports in the system on that prior screen, but you go, if your last report was a 4, then the next one for August 30th will be the 5th one. So please make sure you're labeling these correctly to coincide with your previous reporting. Again, we ordered the activities and the most amount of money is listed first, which was child care centers, and then we have construction management. We indicated that both of these activities are still eligible throughout the life of the project. And then if you keep scrolling down, so we have the progress of activities here. And I provided an example of kind of the language you can incorporate. So for this project, we said during the reporting period, the general contractor began construction May of 2021. Application materials for participants have been drafted. And our planned activities is that construction is expected to be completed in the next reporting period, December of 2021. And the application materials, if you want to expand that box, will be finalized and made available in October, and the official open date is estimated to occur in March of 2022. So at this point in time, my activity is not complete. So I have no beneficiaries to report on. So you'll see that I indicated in the next section that everything's a 0 right now because people are not able to enter into the building and use that child care center right now. So again, notate all the zeros here for everything. But if you do have an activity that is completed, you would report on that beneficiary information within here. And then Dan, if you could scroll up to the top to the activity listing, I just wanted to note something for ours. I picked a very simple example for our presentation today, but I do want to note that we do have a little bit more complicated opportunities that allow for an applicant, a grantee, to have more than one activity and they meet different national objectives. And oftentimes this is within our downtown revitalization grant, and we have the removal of architectural barriers. So just want to note to everyone is whatever activity you identify here, you're identifying it's meeting the national objective of LMC. So you would indicate removal of architectural barriers. And you might also have commercial rehab, and it's meeting a separate national objective. If you scroll down just a little bit, since we're in the LMC, you would only list the removal of architectural barriers, and then in your narrative, you would only tell us about the progress regarding the removal of architectural barriers. So hopefully that all makes sense. In our last reporting session with 2020 grantees, we had a couple of people duplicate the narrative or provide us information on an activity that was meeting a different national objective, and that was not the correct place to place it. If you have questions, feel free to work with your program representative or contact me. Happy to help. And then I think we keep scrolling. We'll go back down to Hispanic section. So again, this project example, we did not have complete, so everything's entered as zeros. And then if you keep scrolling down to income levels, again, zeros. And then each time the certified administrator needs to certify that everything is true and accurate and correct, insert their first and last name. Today we are pretending Nancy Drew is a certified administrator, and she has indicated that the form is ready for submission and to be reviewed by DED, and it was submitted today on 8/4.
And again, if this is a form that, we're still in the process of working on and we're not ready to submit with this reporting period, then we would just select no here and then click save. And then after you click save, when you do want to come back into the form to edit it, then you'll just access, the form will be created. It'll be accessible through this page right here. And you'll click on the pencil icon, which will allow you to continue editing it. Once you do complete these forms and you just want to see it in a non-editable state, then you'll be able to always just click on the report number here to gain access into the completed version of the form. So moving on to our next, I'm sorry.
Oh,
yep.
Sorry, Dan. I just wanted to also let everyone know, if you notice this kind of grid format here, if you're not sure if you submitted the form, we do have the grid. You can, we have the column that says, has the project status been completed? And it says yes. You can add additional columns to this if you need to, if you're looking for what else has been completed. So if you don't want to completely click on to everything here, you could just click on add extra columns to view additional information, and it would populate.
Yeah, and that's a great way to, as Rebecca was saying, to get the status and to kind of understand, where you are and what we've completed on the form so far.
Perfect. And then Jennifer, have we received any questions via chat? I don't see any in the Q&A.
No questions yet.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to the next form that we're going to talk about is the LMH form. So again, navigating to the custom tab here at the top, and I'm going to scroll down and find my LMI housing LMH form. And we're going to click on the form in order to access, again, the page that will either show us the form that we've started working on, gives us the ability here to, click on the plus sign and add a new form in order to actually get into the form and take a look at how to fill it out. Again, I'm going to click on the pencil icon here, which will allow me to edit this form that I've already started filling out. So what should be is, no surprise here at the top, we have our link to the help page, and then we have our status report section. Still should be filled out, with the same formatting, with the year as also the report number, indicating the period of time that the report covers. And then some of the items down here for this national objective should also look the same in terms of how you're interacting with it, choosing the activity code from the dropdown, indicating if the activity is eligible.
So for our owner-occupied rehab activity and grants we awarded for a couple of years now, these are the 3 activities that will always be listed. So please take note, they are in order for my example of the most amount of money, and we do indicate if the activity is eligible under LMH. So, and the goal is for them to say yes. If you scroll down to progress of activities, and expand that window. Thank you. So I provided an example of language to kind of explain the progress of activities. So above you, we indicated that there are 3 activities we're funding with CDBG funds. So I use the acronym OOR for owner-occupied rehab, and we clearly state that completed rehabilitation of 3 homes during the reporting period. That's January 1 through June 30th. And then we do give an update on housing management of how is the owner-occupied rehab program moving along. So they've completed a review of 7 applications. Of those applications, 5 have met income qualifications, and of these 3 have met the economic feasibility review. These 3 are being evaluated for lead-based paint, and they also indicate the non-select letters have been issued for the following reasons. So there were a total, may have not updated those numbers, so those might not make sense now, but letters were sent out due to the applicant not meeting the economic feasibility review. The rehab that is necessary is above the 25,000 threshold, and then letters were also sent out for they did not meet the income qualification. So they were at above 80% AMI, and we cannot assist individuals who are above that threshold. So in the planned activities, we have listed for owner-occupied rehab. We expect an additional 3 rehabs to be completed during the July through December reporting period. And the housing management, they're going to continue marketing for additional applications since they have a total of 10 houses they indicated in their contract that need to be rehabbed within that community. So one thing that's different on these forms, as you may have noticed within LMA and LMC from our paper ones, is we are not asking you for the cumulative number. We are only asking you what is happening for the reporting period timeframe. So you'll need to take a look, especially with migrated awards, to make sure that you are not double counting your projects. We will be taking a look at what was already submitted to us and looking at the cumulative thing. So there might be additional questions when we are conducting our review with this one, just to make sure we're all on the same page of how many people should be reported on for this. So in our progress of activities, we indicated above that 3 rehabs were completed during the reporting period. So then on our low moderate income housing national objective section, we have a total of 3 housing were impacted. Then we gave a report out on the race and ethnicity for the total population. You'll notice that you report the race and ethnicity based on the head of household for each unit. So even if there are 6 people living there, it's based on the head of household. So, and again, with race and ethnicity for Hispanic, can you add a 3 to the total population total to be a 3? Reviewing your forms is always necessary. So for Hispanic, again, of those 3, how many also identify as Hispanic? We had 1 person in our example who identified as Hispanic, and I indicated that up above. You'll notice that there are zeros in each one of the fields, and can you update the total population? Obviously, the copy was not working at this point in time when I was filling out this form. If you keep scrolling down, income levels, again, you'll notice that everyone that we are serving with this activity are below 80% AMI. It will be a major red flag if you say you assisted someone who has an income above 80%. So everyone is income qualified, so your records should be reflecting on what bracket they are falling into. We also need you to indicate the total female head of households that were assisted during the reporting period. In our example, we're using 2. Next, we have lead-based paint requirements. So we had 3 houses that we rehabbed during this period. Of those 3 houses, they were all constructed before 1978. So they all had to do lead-based paint remediation actions. So when we completed the rehab and evaluated everything that was spent, We spent between 5,000 to 25,000 on these houses, so we indicated a 3 on the interim controls or standard practices. So, and then can you enter zeros on those spots that I left blank? Okay, thank you. So we have the total there. So for the low moderate income housing national objective, we were being kind and we combined the indicator beneficiary data also within this form. So you have one less form if you custom form to look at for housing grants. So if you scroll down into that one, so here we have a total. For number 1, A and B, we identify our total amount that we proposed that we would rehab, and that should align with the contract amount. And then 2A and 2B identify what has been rehabbed during the reporting period. So again, the 3 matches up with everything that we listed above, being consistent with that. And then of those 3, we need to identify how many of the units are occupied by elderly households. We indicated 2. And then next we have to identify the number of units brought from substandard to NDED rehab standards. That is a 3. And then the number of units made lead safe, that is a 3. And it correlates with our lead-based paint remediation section too. So make sure those both align. And then number of units the grantee chose to make accessible under Section 504, we indicated 0 in our example. So you'll notice that these were all the LMI numbers for this, and we only serve LMI folks within this opportunity and with this activity. So all the information that you just indicated for LMI on the next section for 2B, you will mirror it. So that's at this point in time, that's how we have the program set up. So, but if we choose to change our program, that in the future it could be different, but at this time it would be mirrored in both of these sections. Again, we have the certification section that Nancy Drew certified that everything was good. If we originally submitted this with my errors in it, the program rep would have opened it back up and sent them an email saying, thank you, Nancy, but we need you to edit these things and correct these items here. You need to enter 0 on these fields, and then also you did not enter a total amount. So, and usually we give our grantees about 5 days to make those edits. So please be aware, if you have questions or our notes don't make sense, feel free to contact your program rep. So that is it for LMH.
And when you're done editing the form, just clicking on save, coming back to this page here where you can either view detail in the grid or edit the form again to make additional changes. If you need to redo something, as Rebecca mentioned, if you need to revise something, add in totals, or if you're just still creating it and you want to edit it as you go along. In terms of accessing our next form, again, we're going to go up to the custom tab up here. And now we're going to be looking at the LMJ form. So scrolling down and accessing your LMJ form here. And once I click here, it's going to bring me to my page that shows me, again, any existing forms that we already have. If I need to create a new one, I'm going to go to the top right-hand corner and click on the plus sign. Otherwise, I'm just going to go to my existing form right here, and I'm going to click on the pencil icon in order to edit this form. So when I click here, again, I can change some of the details that I'm looking at the top, where I need to put in the report number, the year, and then the period of time that the report covers. If it's the final report, we can enter the date in here. And then proceeding again to beginning to fill out this form as it pertains to LMI jobs or LMJ?
So this is a fairly recent award. They've gone through one reporting period, and this is their second one. So for 2020 grants, this will look very similar to yours. Again, they were only awarded a grant for direct financial assistance to for-profit and also general admin. But we don't identify general admin on here. So they only identified that main activity. If we scroll down to progress of activities, I did give an example of just some narrative to provide. So they indicated that during this reporting period, they completed special conditions, they received notice to release funds on 1/28, and they've completed the procurement for equipment and submitted the purchase order for equipment on June 2021. And they're currently drafting job postings for 5 new positions. And their planned activities is to receive equipment order and install them in the facility, and then market those job postings and hire new positions. So at this time, based off of that narrative, they indicated that they have not created any new jobs at this point, but they're ramping up to it. So it's giving us a good idea of what's going on with the project. So we indicate 0 jobs were created at this time period, and then race and ethnicity is all 0s at this point in time. Now, if they did, for their next reporting period, if they do hire someone in a new position, they would then report that information on that individual that was hired. And again, with race and ethnicity, that is further identified with our current example. It is all 0s at this point in time, along with income levels. So as we did with low moderate income housing, the national objective form, with the national objective form for jobs, we also included some of the indicator beneficiary data on here. So we have the proposed numbers that are listed here. So 1A identifies the proposed number of LMI jobs to be created, which is 3, and then the proposed number of jobs created total, which is 5. So at this point in time, so this is just kind of reminding you of what your end goal is, so you don't lose sight of that. But at this point in time, for the actual reporting that is in the section 2 here, everything is 0 because they have not hired anyone, and they are creating jobs. So you'll notice in the next section it says jobs retained. They are not doing that aspect of the program. So those are all indicated as 0 in there. And again, we have job creation, retention, proposed / actual data. You'll indicate the proposed numbers in here. So the proposed full-time jobs is 5, and the proposed full-time LMI jobs created will be 3. And then section 2 is the actuals for the reporting period. And I indicated those all as 0 at this point in time. So with low moderate income jobs, we have another section that we need to identify the administration job categories. So we do have, and those are broken down by officials and managers, professionals, technicians, sales, office and clerical, craft worker, operatives, laborers, service workers. The definitions of those are within, I believe, Exhibit E4 of the application. And usually this is identified at time of application, even before we award. It's a conversation we have with the business and the local unit of government during the application process and during the contractual period conversation. So if you have questions on this, I recommend reviewing the application that was submitted for your activity, and then also the contract and associated MOU. So this project is focused on jobs created, so they would be focusing on the jobs created section. They would not fill out anything for jobs retained. We built this to address the potential. We've had have awarded in the past where they've created jobs and also retained jobs on the same project. So we needed to build it out to address both scenarios. We do have, again, the certification. Nancy Drew, again, certified that this is true and correct, and she said it is ready for submission and indicated the date. So the program representative here at the department knows that it is ready to review.
All right, so saving the form, again, clicking on the green save button, being able to view the form that you've began to complete or that you've completed by the grid here. And then moving on to our next form, which again, accessing the custom tab here from the top and scrolling down and reviewing the slum and blight on an area basis form here, the SBA form. So clicking on the name of the form to access it. And then similar to what we've seen with our other forms, reviewing anything that we've already created within the grid here. If I need to create a new form, going and clicking on the plus sign. But to kind of dive in and see what's on this form, I'm going to click on the pencil icon, which will also allow me to edit the form. Top two parts here, top two sections are the same: report number, report year, period of time the report covers, and then if applicable, the final report end date. And then moving into, for the SBA, the national objective activity eligibility section here.
Great. So we oftentimes, grants that we have issued in the past and currently, SBA is met within the downtown revitalization opportunity. So usually it involves commercial rehabilitation as one of the main activities. So that is the first activity I placed in there, and then the secondary amount of money placed into it was to address street improvement. So both of these activities are meeting the national objective of SBA. So we only identify the activities that are meeting that national objective. If they had a third activity, oftentimes we see removal of architectural barriers. Then you would go into that LMC national objective form and just identify the removal of architectural barriers activity in there. I'm hoping this answers your question, Lori. So you would have two national objective forms that would be completed for a grant, potentially. So if you have questions and you think you might have a situation with that, I know some of our older grants, it might be a little bit unclear with the contract. If you're a new certified administrator and you're taking that on, feel free to contact your program rep and they can walk you through it, or you can also contact me. So both of these activities that are listed here are meeting this national objective of slum blight on an area basis, so that's why they're listed here. We don't list any other activities. So if we go down to progress of activities next, we give an update on both activities. So commercial rehabilitation, we say for this reporting period, we've completed facade improvements on 3 businesses. And then for street improvements, we're giving a clear idea of what's going on with that. So they've completed the procurement for the general contractor, and the contract between the local unit of government and the general contractor has been executed. And then, so we know what happened during this most recent reporting period. And then the planned activities, we have what we are expecting to get done in the next 6 months is to have an additional 4 facade improvements to be completed within the next reporting period. And then street improvements, they are expecting the contractor to begin work in September, and the completion date would be November 2021. I know that seems really fast. With all of our national objective forms, you do need to restate throughout the life of the project that yes, your activities are meeting the national objective throughout the life of the project. So the first question is, have changes been made to your SBA compliance review record? oftentimes you'll say no, but maybe your 10-year designation comes to an end and you're in the middle of the project, then you would indicate yes and provide us the updated record. So that would be number 2. Number 3, has the area been officially designated as blighted by the local county government? It should be a yes. So please make sure that is accurate. And is the proper documentation, or is there proper documentation? Should be a yes. We would not have funded you if you did not have the proper documentation. So please be aware of that. And I think I forgot to put in the designation year, but this one was 2017 for my example, if you type in that year. For number 5. So usually the designation is good for 10 years, but you do need to redesignate there. And please be aware, I believe we followed the Nebraska state statutes regarding Sloman Blight designation. So if there is a change to that, then we also would have a change, would need to be reflected here. And we would notify you, of course. But so designated year would be 2017. For this example, the number of qualified buildings properties, 194, were identified as meeting that designation, and the percentage of qualified buildings properties. Make sure your percentage is coming in correctly. We've seen them come in as 8,800. So I believe you have to input 0.88 for the percentage to come in correctly. Is that right, Dan? I don't know if we want to test that out.
Yep, that's correct. Anywhere in here where we're looking for a percentage, it has to be entered as a decimal. So this would be 0.88 to get this outcome.
Okay, thank you. So number 9 is reporting the actual business as assisted. So if you remember from the progress of activities, I said 3 businesses were assisted during this reporting period. So that 3 matches that narrative up above. So this is the next new part. We are constantly wanting to ensure our reporting requirements are up to date and everything's good to go, and everything's wonderful. And from our review, we've determined that we do not, if you are meeting the Sloman Blight on an area basis, you do not need to report to us the race and ethnicity for your grant or your income levels for your grant if you're meeting the Sloman Blight area designation. Now, the reason why we are keeping these in here is we believe that HUD might be updating that determination, but at this point in time, you would enter zeros in all the race and ethnicity for your project, if that makes sense. And we'll be updating the instructions that are on our website. I believe right now they currently say to enter it, so we'll be removing that, and we're planning on having those instructions made available on Friday, but feel free to write this in bold on your notebook. If you are meeting the national objective of Sloman Blight on an area basis, we do not need this further breakdown on race and ethnicity and income levels. Hopefully that all makes sense to the group and it does not cause confusion. Only the Sloman Blight area designation. So cool. So we're going to just move towards the end. And again, income levels, do not need that for Sloman Blight on an area designation. We are keeping these fields in case HUD changes their requirements and request for information. So we have the certification here. So Nancy Drew says everything's great. And then she indicated the form completion and she will save. Again, anything left blank would need to have a 0 in it just so that we know that you purposefully left or completed that section of the form.
And in terms of accessing our last national objective form, we're going to be taking a look at urgent need right now. So Again, from the custom tab there at the top, I'm going to go ahead and click on the urgent need form. And in order to get started, again, starting a new form, plus sign, top right-hand corner. If we want to just look at an existing form that we're already in progress, I'm going to click on the pencil icon to edit this. Sections at the top are going to be the same, where we have to enter in our report number, the year, 4-digit year, period of time the report covers, and if applicable, the final report end date.
Great. So recently, due to the 2019 flood, we did open up the ability for grantees to become eligible with CDBG activities by meeting the national objective urgent need. So this was 2019 and 2020 grants primarily this applies to. It would be indicated in your contract. You would identify the activity that meets the national objective urgent need. So for this example, we indicated flood drainage improvements, and it is an eligible activity. And then if we scroll down to progress of activities, we indicated they completed procurement for the general administrator and hired firm, and then please list the name of the firm, and then completed special conditions and began procurement process for the general contractor. So we know what's going on. In the planned activities, you'll see that they are planning to complete procurement for the general contractor in September of 2021. So we can keep an eye out for that. At this point in time with this reporting, they do not have any beneficiaries at this point. They haven't even started construction. So they are indicating 0 persons have been impacted. So you will only complete the total persons once your project activity is fully completed. So Nancy Drew did certify this form and indicate that the form is complete and everything is good.
All right, so moving on to our next form, we're going to start with some of the indicator beneficiary data forms. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the planning form. So I'm going to scroll down. You'll see it's still marked with a project status, and then you'll see all the indicator beneficiary data forms will be marked accordingly, where the title says that it is a indicator beneficiary data form, and then it'll identify right here the detail of the form itself. So this one has planning. So this is the one that we're going to click on. And same, even though it's a different form, it's the same concept where it brings us to this view right here. I can create a new one by clicking on the plus sign, or I can click on the pencil icon to edit my existing form, which will allow me to first begin by entering those first couple of sections right here, which again are the same: port number, 4-digit year, period of time, and then we have our indicator beneficiary data for planning right here.
Great, thank you. So for the indicator beneficiary data, my example, this is a LMA project that planning grant. So you'll see that we indicated the proposed numbers. They should match what is on your contract. So the total number is 865 persons are impacted. Of those, 340 are LMI. The planning document is complete and has been accepted by the local unit of government. So they are indicating that this is all good. And you'll notate that for this reporting period, they replicated those same numbers from the contract. Now, if you have a project, a planning grant that is meeting the national objective slum and blight on an area basis, you would still complete this, but you would leave the LMI section as 0 for that. And then we did have an update on the total number. So if you are not sure what your total number is for a Slum and Blight Area Basis Planning Grant, please reach out to Amber Ward. She can walk you through where to find that data. And if she's not available, feel free to contact me. We're happy to make sure that you are using the correct number on this. So I believe she's been sending out emails with the 2020 grantees and maybe 2019, but I will follow up with her. But if you have questions as you're completing this, feel free to reach out to Amber to make sure you're using the correct number and you're gathering that information correctly. Same as before, we have the certification and the form completion.
All right, and clicking save, moving on to our next indicator beneficiary data form here. Again, from the custom drop down, we're going to look at the public facility, public infrastructure activities form. So clicking into the form, then following the same steps to either create a new one or edit our existing form here. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the existing form. You'll always have the access to the DED support site. You'll have to fill out the status report sections. Then we have our indicator beneficiary data for public facility, public infrastructure activities.
Cool. So again, for this section, we identified the proposed number of persons to be assisted. So this is 1,345 people as our total. Of that, 770 are LMI. Again, we've filled this out with the approach of it meeting the national objective of low moderate income. But if you are filling this out and you have an activity that meets Slum and Blight on an area basis, you would not have anything entered in for that LMI. You would have a 0 there. So we indicated for this reporting period, 770 people for the reporting period that are LMI, and then the total is 1,345. So with 2A and 2B, we have to further break that down when we are reporting to HUD. So they ask, of the 770 people that are LMI, how many of those people we have new access to the facility or infrastructure, or the number of persons assisted with improved access to a facility or infrastructure, or the number of persons that no longer have access to only a substandard one. So 2A, 1, 2, and 3 there, those 3 ones, whatever you enter in there has to enter the total number. So oftentimes we direct our grantees to just fill out one of those that best associates with the activity that was completed. So for this one, it was, I'm going to say we did a street improvement project, and so it's a new access to a facility or infrastructure. It actually would have been improved. This might have been a library in my mind when I was filling this out. But again, overall, those 3 secondary fields of 2A.1, 2A.2, 2A.3, they add up together. So you can't put 770 in each one because then you're going above your overall number. It has to overall equal 770 there. Hopefully that makes sense. Same thing with 2B. It's asking about the total beneficiaries and their access to the facility infrastructure, if it's new, improved, no longer substandard. It's adding them all together. So please don't fill out 1345 in all fields. That will cause an issue and we'd be over-reporting to HUD. So hopefully that all makes sense. If you have questions, let us know. And then again, we have the certification statement for our certified administrator and the form completion statement. And Jennifer, I'm just going to check in. Any questions via the chat?
No questions, Rebecca.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on now to the businesses assisted form. So again, the custom form drop down here and clicking on businesses assisted, accessing a new form either by going to the top right-hand corner and clicking on the plus sign, or just clicking on the edit icon to edit our existing form here. So taking a look at the top part, which has the report details here in this top section, and then taking a look specifically at the beneficiary data for businesses assisted.
Okay, so for the businesses assisted, this is primarily would be completed if you're doing commercial rehab activity or an academic development project. So we first identify the 1A, the proposed number of businesses assisted, which is 10, and the number of businesses assisted during this reporting period. So I indicated 3. So since we have completed, I'm going to pretend we did a commercial rehab project on this one. We assisted 3 businesses. We then need to enter the name of each business we assisted along with their DUNS number. So you first identify their legal name and then do a comma for the DUNS number, and then to separate each one you use a semicolon. So and then of the businesses, of those 3 businesses we assisted, we need to identify how many of those were new businesses and how many were existing. So these were all existing businesses. They just got a new facade improvement, so we indicated 3 there. Since we answered they were existing, our next question that we need to indicate, were any of those businesses expanding or are these relocations? All 3 of these businesses stayed in the same square footage that they started at the time of application to participate in the program. So you indicate 0. So, and then you then certify that everything's correct and true, identify your name, and then complete the section for form completion.
All right, and now we're going to move on, once we click save, to our last indicator beneficiary data form. Click on the custom drop down and locate the public services form. So we're going to take a look at this form now. Again, accessing any instance of the form by clicking on the name and then clicking on the pencil icon within the form that we've already created in order to edit and to display the information that we're looking at here. So we have the top part, which is our information about the report number, 4-digit year, period of time the report covers, and then the actual public services information piece.
Cool. So for public services, we identify the number of persons assisted during this reporting period, which is 55. So we'll pretend that we had a food bank structure and 55 individuals were served at that food bank during the reporting period. And then we identify, of the 55, how many were persons with new or continued access to a service or benefit, or persons with improved access to a service or benefit, or that received a service or benefit that is no longer substandard. So those 55 people were a new service within that food bank where they were delivering food to homebound individuals. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, just like with public facilities and infrastructure piece, that 2A, 2B, 2C, those add up to be the full number of 55. So you cannot put 55 in each section there. You need to either break it out and have it fully identified or have all the numbers just in one section. And we usually direct you guys to use it in just one area. But if you think that your activity meets both 2A and 2B, contact your program rep to talk that through and see what is the best route to go towards. Again, we have the certification, statement, and form completion.
All right, so now that we've covered those national objective forms, the indicator beneficiary data forms, the last ones that we have to cover here is we have MeBe-Weebie and then the new hires, and we're going to get started by taking a look at the MeBe-Weebie in section 3 reporting form here, which is again in that custom tab, the drop down, selecting the form, and then accessing our existing copy of the form by clicking on the pencil icon to edit.
Cool. So MeBe-Weebie section 3, we have a similar, so you'll complete this form for each contractor or subcontractor that is a contract is executed for. So you could have up to quite a few, especially if you're doing a commercial rehab program. You would identify that contractor here. All the fields that have start are required fields. This is information we are required to provide to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. If you have any questions, we're running short on time, so I don't want to keep you guys over. I think it's fairly self-explanable, but if you have questions as you're completing it, feel free to let us know. One thing too, if your contractor does not have a tax ID, you only put in the last 4 digits of their social security number. We don't want the full social security number, so only the last 4 digits there. And again, we have the certification and form completion. So. And if you are working on a migrated grant, we already have this information from you from your previous reporting period. You don't have to re-enter it. It's only for new contracts executed during the reporting period that you need to make us aware of.
All right, and then moving on to our last form that we're going to be taking a look at, the new hires form. Looks like here we have a couple to choose from here. I'll just go ahead.
Let's go with number 1.
All right.
Yes.
We do have a question in the QA. How does the final report end date work with the MeBe-Weebie form?
I will get back to you guys on that. And we'll finish this up form and we'll email that out to you guys on Friday and get you an answer, because I don't think I'll be able to get to it during this presentation. So for new hires, we have, again, the status report. You indicate the report number, the report year, period of time report covers, and if it's the final reporting period. One thing to be aware of is for Section 3, we do have updated guidance that will be issued via policy memo. For this, for any contract executed between the department prior to November 30th, 2020, the old regulation stands, so you'll continue using this form. But for any contract executed after that date, there are different reporting requirements, and we'll be providing guidance on that. Since this training is primarily for migration and a lot of our contracts that were executed prior to November 30th, we're going over this form. So please be aware regarding that. So this report includes aggregate numbers for the reporting period. You are identifying new employees hired by the grantee, whether working on the CDBG project or not, that were hired for construction or construction-related jobs. New employees of contractors and subcontractors working for the CDBG project, and the total staff hours worked should be representative of a 6-month period. So this has not changed from the paper version at all. You still identify the type of job category indicated here. And in our example, we indicate there was 1 new hire, 2 Section 3. We were testing numbers here, and these don't make complete sense, so I apologize on that. The professional total Section 3 should be either the same or less than for the total number, so that should change from a 2 to 1. Then we indicate the number of hours there also. So you identify the total staff hours, and then the total staff hours worked by that Section 3 resident individual. So very similar for each job profession here. I don't work very closely with Section 3 on this. I'm going to see if Steve is still on the training and if he has something else to add. Maybe. If not, I don't think he has anything new to add. If you guys have questions, email them to me, and I will get you an answer on that as you are completing this. And again, Steve, do you have something to add?
No, but I agree with what Rebecca stated. Follow up with an email since we're running to the minute prior to and actually over, but we can respond to that with regard to Section 3 because that's an area we're still exploring.
Right. I'm not seeing any, that's the completion of our training for today. Dan, is there anything else that you wanted to touch upon for closing?
No, I appreciate everyone's time. And just remember how to access support with any questions you may have, but I don't have anything else.
Okay. I meant to mention this earlier in the training. If you have a migrated project and you have 2019 or prior, and you are applying to for a new 2021 grant, we do have new threshold requirements for 2021 grants, and you do have to show financial progress on 2019 and prior grants. For 2019, it's 25%, 2018, it's 50%, and 2017 and prior grants, it has to be 100% of project costs drawn down. If you are falling into that and you're preparing applications, please email the DED research team and myself so we know that you need to get access as soon as possible if you're having hiccups of getting into those migrated grants to submit a drawdown. So thank you so much. If you guys have questions after this, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll also answer some items in the email we send out on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.